Hey guys, so there's a couple of things, a couple of words that I kind of want to define and talk about. One is sanctifying grace, and one is the intrinsic righteousness, intrinsic ontological righteousness, that the soul is made righteous by God in justification. So these two terms, these two ideas, I just want to say a quick word about here. First, what is sanctifying grace? Oftentimes you hear it spoken of by Catholics as if there is some sort of semi-corporal substance or energy called sanctifying grace that God infuses, and they're thinking of this word infuse as if there's some sort of almost quasi-physical action by which some sort of substance is put into the soul. And then here we're thinking of the soul. People often think of the soul as sort of a dualistic, like there's a Casper, there's a ghost inside this body, there's a soul inside this body, and if you had spiritual eyes you could see this sort of ethereal, ghost-like soul that is interwoven with this body, and that sanctifying grace comes and brightens this soul so that this Casper ghost gets bright, and it's like an ontological, and then here they're thinking of ontological as the nature, the essence of being. And so you're seeing, like, at the core of this ethereal substance, this soul, it's becoming bright and radiant and glowing with this substance that has been poured into it, and you're almost thinking of, like, some corporal, spiritual substance that's glowing and it's white and it's beautiful and it's being poured into this, Casper's soul that has been darkened, and now the soul is glowing, and now that soul is ontologically righteous. However, this couldn't be further from what Catholic theologians have in mind when they talk about these things. So whether you agree or disagree with what Catholics say on these things, let's just kind of get our minds into what they actually mean, because I used to think it was that other thing. First of all, when the Catholic theologian talks about sanctifying grace in the soul, there's nothing at all, well, with the soul, there's nothing at all incorporeal that they have in mind. They're not thinking of any kind of dualistic ghost-like substance or ghost or spirit. They're not really thinking, when I say the word spirit, they're not thinking of anything like what you think when you think the word spirit. The soul is the body. You are a physical creature. God made human beings who are physical creatures, and the soul is just the form of your body. You are a body. And so when sanctifying grace is infused into the soul, what it's talking about is the body. Now, what does sanctifying grace refer to here? Again, sanctifying grace is actually not a thing. Sanctifying grace refers to an action by which God sanctifies you. And you are a body. You are the body. So what is it? Does this mean that something is infused, some action is infused into the physical body? No. Actually, so let's correct one thing. There is an incorporeal, immaterial principle in the body of you. It's your intellect. It's your will. This is an immaterial principle. Part of who you are. You are a body, and you have an immaterial intellect and will. And so what sanctifying grace does, which is a better way to think of it, it's not an it or a thing, what sanctifying grace does is it's God's action by which He supernaturally directs your will, your heart, your intellect towards Him. Okay, so there's not a thing called sanctifying grace that exists. Well, it's not that there isn't sanctifying grace that doesn't exist, but it's not a thing. It's not a substance. There's nothing actually being infused into you. These are just ways of speaking. And so what does it mean that then you are made ontologically righteous? That the substance, that your essence is ontologically righteous? All it means is this: your will has been supernaturally, your intellect, your heart has been supernaturally directed towards God. And that is what is being referred to when it says that you have been made intrinsically, ontologically righteous. All it means is that your will, it's not that you have some sort of Casper ghost spirit living in within you, or that you're some sort of Casper ghost spirit that lives in a body, and that now that your Casper ghost spirit thing has been made bright and radiant, and it's been filled with this substance called sanctifying grace. No, all it means is that God has supernaturally directed your will towards him, and that is your righteousness. You are ontologically, objectively righteous because the essence of who you are is a physical creature whose will is directed towards God. That's what it means to be ontologically, objectively, intrinsically righteous. So I want to talk about this because I used to think it was the other thing, and I'm sort of just correcting my own past errors, but Catholics often talk about these things like this, and I see in my conversations with some people that they really kind of think like sanctifying grace is a thing, or something like that. Now, there's a whole nother discussion about what does the word grace mean in the Bible, and that's something very different than what sanctifying grace is defined as in Catholic theology. Now, it doesn't mean there's an error in Catholic theology just because they're defining a word differently than it's defined in the Bible. I mean, you see this as well when Catholics talk about an increase in justification. I mean, that's unbiblical language. It's not wrong. They're just defining the term differently and using it differently. We could never think that, any dogma of the church is wrong. But we need to be aware that sometimes, as systematic theology progresses over time, sometimes words do begin to take on different meanings, and it's not always going to be the same definition as it is in the Bible. So that's a little tangent about that thing with grace and what grace means, because it does mean something different in the Bible than it means in Catholic systematic theology. All right, guys, thanks for listening. God bless you. Bye.